I'm doing the interview. Misha, the guy who hasn't got much hair, is Misha Sakharov. Misha Sakharov is an integrative health engineer. He's Russian by birth, lives in Denmark, and I'm going to interview him about his work as an integrative health engineer. So he's a Master of Science he's an engineer, but I'm going to ask him first of all. Good morning, Misha.
Good morning, Steve. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. Misha, can you please explain to the audience what exactly is an integrative health engineer?
Well, that's a good question, because integrative, it's something about integration. That's clear. And I think we need, in order to understand the health and how to promote the health and how to heal ourselves, we have to see the whole picture. And very often, if we talk about, for example, breathing therapeutic, somebody's just work with breathing. If we're talking about somebody working with nutrition, a nutritionist is only work with nutrition. Physiotherapist would work with movement.
So this is taking holistic view. This is not looking at the symptoms of illness. This is looking at the patient, right?
Yeah, that's right. And trying to combine different methods together in order to obtain what we call synergetic effect.
Okay.
And that is very powerful because it's called normalization. When I work, for example, with breathing technique called Buteyko, it's called a technique for normalization of breathing patterns.
Okay.
24/7.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Misha, you mentioned that the integrative thing. As I understand it, you have a model which is based on with 5 dimensions, like a pentagram, like a 5-dimension model.
That's right. And the pentagram, that's a star. That's a star-shaped model. And if we remember, it was, this model was used to explain many things in life. For example, if you remember this, the circle and the man standing in the circle.
Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci, yeah?
Leonardo da Vinci model, yeah. That's right. That's also a pentagram. And I started, my thinking was, it was about energy. It was how to acquire energy from the environment, and then how to distribute the energy into our own body. And what I thought, just a second. And what I thought is that if we take some measures to optimize how we acquire energy from the environment, and then we take some measures to optimize the way we distribute the energy. Mm-hmm. We have 13 different body systems. Wow. That are all dependent or on the energy we acquire and how we distribute the energy, because that's our body is very interesting, because it's a very special piece of engineered by God or evolution, whatever. But it's a true example of interdependence, not independent systems, but truly interwoven, interdependent system. Yeah. So if we take this this star-shaped figure, if we imagine that I'm staying like that here, I have 2 hands, and I take energy from the environment, in order to remember my model. Yep. So one hand, I take the oxygen from the environment, I optimize the oxygen acquisition, and with the other hand, I optimize the energy from dietary sources. That's the optimization of metabolism in two levels.
Okay, Misha, what you're describing there, it seems very, very logical, but it seems to me, given the amount of the so-called lifestyle diseases that we have in our society these days, such as cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, circulatory diseases, how can you say briefly how our modern life, with its stress and everything, how is our modern life working against these things which are quite a natural system?
But that's what the other thing, it's about distribution. So how we distribute the energy, both acquiring and distribution. And I want to tell you about the three other places in the model. It's how we think, it's the mental part, how our mental state is, because it's very closely interwoven with the others via hormones. Because, the way we see on the stress from the environment, the way we react to stress, it's we can say it's the mental side, but it's that's one side. The other thing is the movement. If we have sedentary lifestyle, that's one of the legs.
Sedentary means we're not moving much.
Sorry?
Sedentary means like we're doing now. We're just sitting. You're standing. I'm sitting.
I'm standing. That's right.
Are you on your trampoline?
I'm on my trampoline. I can show you that one.
Okay. Well, I'm doing this wrong. Okay. Wow. There we go. Misha is on a trampoline. Here's everyone out there. This is where you are able to work at a computer, but also be less sedentary. Sedentary means you're sitting doing nothing. So sedentary lifestyle is literally a killer.
It is, and that's why my protocol, my star-shaped protocol, where we have two ways of optimizing energy acquisition from the environment.
Yeah.
Then we have to,
distribute it.
Distribute the energy. We have the mental side. We have the physical side. It's one leg. And we have the immunity. And in order to optimize the immunity and physical side, and everything is interconnected. So if we talk about a lifestyle disease, that was your question.
Yeah.
So there's many aspects of it. I already mentioned the propaganda. And the propaganda, it's about nutrition. So what we heard about the nutritional models that are widespread and that became widespread since the 50s.
Yeah.
It's a one model. It's this nutritional pyramid where
the one developed by Ansel Keys.
Ansel Keys, that's right. That's right. It was a wrong model, simply, and it's actually based on the scientific fraud in a way.
Yeah, but is it true to say these days that the medicine industry picked up on that, and they have built their range of drugs and treatments around that? And somehow, I mean, if you talk to doctors these days, they still seem to be stuck in this groove about how fat is bad and carbs are good. When you read about diabetes treatment here in Denmark, they talk about don't stop eating carbohydrates. And I don't know, I don't know too much about it, but it seems to me that carbohydrates are the root of the problem.
That's right. It's an interesting notion, because we all are we're used to think about carbs, and we all used to think about glucose as the main source of energy, and that is right. For we have, our body can actually survive and exist and thrive in two modes.
Yeah.
In the where the primary energy source is glucose,
Yeah.
and the other mode where the primary energy source is fats. And all the cells of our body, they can actually shift from one state to another state. And
That's interesting.
but it's very interesting. And if we go back to this misunderstanding about the pyramid, actually Ansel Keys got he was an American scientist, and he got a job from American government and from.
You know why he got the job? Because he was a war hero. He developed the rations for the American soldiers, and the American GIs, they spend army marches on its stomach, and he developed these so-called, I think they're called Q rations, which were which had to be used out in the field. So you couldn't have fresh food. So a lot of it was highly densely packed sugar and glucose based biscuits and things like this. So after the war, he was accepted as the Second World War I'm talking about. After the Second World War, he was accepted as the authority on nutrition by the United States government. So whatever Ansel Keys said was taken as gospel. But he did this famous he did the 7 nation study, didn't he? Which actually they found out later was the 23 nation study, but he decided to leave out the 16 nations from the.
Totally, that's
amazing. Could it happen today? Probably, I don't know.
And the thing is, if we saw the story, if we saw the table, it was a scattered table.
Yeah.
Where it was.
There was no correlation.
Where
23 nations.
Yes, he had the USA, and he had Japan, and he had the Italy,
and everything in between.
It was a lot of dots in the, and he just the whole series of dots. He doctored it. He actually.
And the other thing that I can't believe that they did was that the end result of this was that cholesterol, saturated fats and cholesterol was the main problem. But they proved this with cholesterol by feeding rabbits, which are herbivores. They fed the rabbits with meat, and the rabbits died of heart attacks. And it's amazing. We based that whole
very nice form of experiment.
Yeah. So for 50 years.
Very nice setup.
Yeah. So 50 years we've done it.
If we wrap it up, and we see on the nutrition, so there's two major problems we have.
Yeah.
The one problem, it's because we're talking about cancer. You see, medicine free. And one problem with cancer that one of Ansel Keys' paradigm, this nutritional pyramid, that is wrong, and that we are eating simply too much carbs.
Yeah.
And what happens is that our glucose go up, and insulin goes up, also. And very many of us, we become insulin insensitive, and what happens is actually that insulin is an inhibitor of fat burning.
Okay, so the more carbs you have, basically, the fatter you get.
Yes, and what you get, there's only 4 grams of glucose that can circulate in our body.
4 grams.
4 grams of glucose. Yeah,
that's not much.
It's not much, and normally, because we eat a lot of carbs, the amount of glucose that is circulating in our body is much bigger. And what happens with the exceeding amounts of glucose, it gets converted to fat.
Wow.
And at the same time, because glucose goes up, the insulin follows.
Yeah.
And what happens, the insulin is inhibitor of breaking down of fat. So on the same side, we get a problem. You see, if we get more fat, because we have a kind of fat reserves in our body, and it's not burned, it's never burned, unless we are doing extensive exercise, fat burning exercise that actually hurts and harms our cardiovascular system.
Wow. So we're sitting there in being sedentary. We're taking in stuff that ought to be burnt off straight away. Yeah, that's what you're saying. We're taking in lots of food that is intended to be burnt off straight away, but we're not burning that. So it's being converted to fat, and then after being converted to fat, it's put in there as a reserve. And it's not used. It's like it's there, and it just accumulates in your body. Yeah.
You see, there's a lot of problems in this one. We have different kinds of sugars. We have glucose, and you will have fructose. Yeah. And in normal metabolism, 3% of glucose it's converted to fructose.
Yeah.
And yes. And the fructose, it's the fructose gets actually stimulates the percentage of LDL cholesterol, and LDL cholesterol, that's the bad cholesterol. Bad, but it's only we used to see at the level of health.
Yeah.
Connect the level of health with amounts of this low density cholesterol and the other types of cholesterol too. But you see, both our body fat and the fat that is in our cell membranes, actually, and the fat that is in our own body, and the fat that is in the LDL cholesterol. All these fats, they are actually corresponds the breakdown of fats on saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated. They totally mimic the dietary fat intake we have.
Okay.
So we always got this message that polyunsaturated fat, the fats from vegetarian sources, they're good fats. But the idea, this notion was wrong too. That's a lot of misconceptions. And what it is, that's an unstable structure. What we call, we have saturated fat. It's a very stable structure. There's no double bonds, and it cannot readily be oxidized. But when we have polyunsaturated fat structure, it's very unstable. We have many double bonds, and there's many possibilities for oxidation.
Wow. And, so what would you say to vegans? Vegans refuse to eat any saturated fats, any meat, anything from animals whatsoever, including fish. So, is a vegan diet, is that a healthy diet?
It depends very much what kind of oil they use, if they use oil or not, what kind of fats, and it also depends how many refined sugars, how many refined grains there's a lot of different aspects in this. But what I want to say is that this LDL cholesterol, what I just said, if we eat a lot of saturated fat, the most part of these LDL particles will consist of saturated fat. If we eat a lot of polyunsaturated fats from vegetable oils, then these LDL cholesterols will consist mostly of these, we call it PUFA.
Okay, but is that something?
Unsaturated fatty acids. And what I will tell you now, that is very interesting, because the amount of inflammation in the body, it will be growing if you have polyunsaturated fat in your cholesterol, and the amount of risk concerning cardiovascular disease will be also growing, because the LDL cholesterol in itself, it's not problematic unless there's a lot of inflammatory response going on. Then it really becomes problematic. And the same things simultaneously occurs in the cellular walls, the inflammation.
Yeah.
So we got something called systemic inflammation.
Yeah.
And in order to start dealing with cancer as a metabolic disease, and not just a disease on the level of chromosomes, that because you see, this situation is very alike. We used to from the 50s, from the 50s, 60s, all of the cancer research was about killing the cells.
Yeah.
Killing the cancer cells.
Yeah.
It was not really working with metabolic approach that Otto Warburg advocated from the 20s already.
Yeah, he was the guy who won the Nobel Prize in 1931 for his research on.
Already in 21 and 23, he already formulated a very, very interesting approach that he understood that the cancer thrives on sugar metabolism. And the more sugar, we eat, the more sugar, the more glucose we have in the blood, the more food for cancer.
Yeah.
You see, and the medicine profession didn't really believe in this one. So they went on finding different pathways of killing cancer cells and killing the chromosomes. You see?
Yeah.
What they saw, it was that was the impaired chromosomes.
Yeah.
Misformed chromosomes. And they thought that those chromosomes were actually causing the cancer.
Ah.
It was a wrong notion. The chromosomes was the misformed chromosomes was just an effect.
Oh, so they got it the wrong way around, yeah.
So, and that's the same thing as with the cholesterol.
Yeah.
So the buildup of cholesterol plaque in the vessel walls, in the old blood vessel walls in the body.
Yeah.
They say, okay, that's the LDL cholesterol. That's fats. But you see,
Can you just hold on just one moment, because someone's really desperately trying to get hold of it. It's incredible. You're turning things on their head there. But look, we said this was about cancer healing, medicine free. Now, I first came across you because a very dear friend of mine and dear friend of yours was diagnosed with what's it called? Glioblastoma multiforme, which is one of the most aggressive brain tumors found. And to cut a long story short, he found this. He was diagnosed with this. He went to the top hospital for treatment in Denmark. He had an operation. He had radiation therapy. He had chemotherapy, and in the end, they just basically, if I'm right in saying, they more or less wrote him off. They gave him a letter saying that you're a terminal patient. And at that stage, he was lucky. He's got a very beautiful, very charming girlfriend, and she wasn't happy to just see her boyfriend just die. So she heard about you, Misha, and contacted you, and you basically took him, and he showed the willpower. He showed the fight to want to survive. And within how long was it? 6 months or so when he went back to the hospital? He went back to, this is all documented. It's on Misha's website, which is sakharov.com. You see his blog. You should sign up to his blog. It's a very good blog. Lots of tips about how to avoid getting in this situation. But he went back to the hospital, and they said, "Hi, what are you doing here? You should be dead, because normally it's the prognosis is 2 or 3 months." and they gave him a scan, and all they found was scar tissue. And the neurologist said he didn't know what to say. He said, "Well, never seen anything like this." And they put it in the journal as a spontaneous remission. And since then, Misha has successfully. He can't say treated because he's not a doctor. He's not a medical practitioner. The healing comes from him, but a combination of the things he does, which I'm going to ask him to explain, he has managed to help people face their fight with cancer, change their lifestyle drastically. I mean, drastically, to come through this ordeal and come out of it at the end of it in a far better physical shape than they were when they were healthy before, but also in a far better mental state. And what I'm interested in personally is that, why wait until I get the lifestyle diseases? I'm 62. I'm very prone. At this age, I'm very, 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 very prone to. I mean, it's the age bracket where you start developing diabetes 2, for example. And so I'm very interested in following what Misha does, and I think it's absolutely amazing what he does. And I'm glad to say that now some major doctors in the States who are very much on the ball with what's happening are interested in hearing what Misha has to say, because Misha's coming at it from an engineering perspective, not from the medical perspective, which to me it seems to be that they just keep on coming out with the same old stuff that goes back to Ansel Keys and what have you. So, Misha, tell me about cancer healing.
Yes, cancer healing. That's a complex thing, and we have to really understand how the cancer thrives and what the scientists call the pathways.
Yeah,
we have to understand the natural cancer pathways.
Yeah.
And what we've been talking about, it was the pathway of metabolic pathways.
Okay.
And the first pathway. It's to work with sugar levels, and because you see the cancer cells on the mitochondrial level,
yeah,
they shift energy production from using like oxygen. And when we talk oxygen, it's the oxygenation on the cell level.
Okay.
When we breathe, we used to think about lungs. We used to think about the level of oxygen in the blood. We used to really promote deep breathing. And we used to, when we're talking about health practitioners, many of them, they would say, now take a deep breath, to really
through your mouth.
To fill your lungs with oxygen,
yeah,
to oxygenate the blood. I make a short pause just to show that it is actually nonsense. Because when you take a deep breath, you hyperventilate. And that was, I used the word propaganda, you remember?
Yeah.
The propaganda of deep breathing that is totally wrong, because when we're taking a deep breath when we actually hyperventilate. And what it basically means, it means ventilating lungs too much. And what happens as a result is the wrong balance of gases balance of oxygen,
yeah,
and carbon dioxide.
Okay, because we've been told like you need to get oxygen, you need to get rid of the carbon dioxide, and you need to get oxygen. That's been what we've been told, isn't it?
That's the biggest paradox of human life. Actually, one of the biggest, maybe,
So we don't breathe to get oxygen in. We actually breathe to get carbon dioxide out.
Not like something like that, but you can put it that way. The less we breathe, the more oxygen the cells get.
That's a paradox. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense.
Paradox. Because see what happens. In order to, that's right that we oxygenate the blood when we're breathing a lot. But the problem is that we don't see on the point-to-point relationship between the air outside our body and the cells inside our body. We have to see this interdependence of the highway in our body connecting the air outside with the cell. And this highway, it's the highway of blood, a cardiovascular system where the heart pumps. First, we get it through the lungs. That's also a part of the highway. We get it through the bronchs and bronchioles and alveoli. And in the alveoli, we get it in the blood. And the blood transported to the cells, and heart pumps this system, And the part of our brain, of the brain stem, actually sitting on the top of the brain, on the brain stem, it's called medulla oblongata, the breathing center. It controls the tempo of breathing, or the amount of breaths per minute. That's the automatical breathing patterns. So
what's the significance of how often you breathe a minute then?
That's the very big significance, because what we need is a very finely tuned system. And the more we breathe, the more oxygen we get in the lungs, the less carbon dioxide we get in the lungs.
Dich is bad.
Which is bad, because we have to have a certain amount of carbon dioxide in order to release molecules of oxygen from the molecules of iron sitting in the,
we talked about carbon dioxide.
It's sitting in the molecules of in the red blood cells.
Okay.
Molecules of hemoglobin. So the less we have carbon dioxide, the lesser amount of oxygen molecules will be released to the cells.
Wow. When did they find that out?
Well, they found it out actually in 1904. That's more than
really?
ago. And actually Russians, well, I come from Russia, and Russians used to tell that they found it before 1904. They found out that was a Russian, that was a Niels Bohr's father.
The guy, the father of the atom bomb, his father.
Yes, the neutron model. That's the Niels Bohr, and his father was Christian Bohr. He was a very interesting guy. He was a famous physiologist, and he was working in the university, in Copenhagen University. And he found something we now call the Bohr's law. And the Bohr's law, it's 1904, and it actually describes the affinity that the medical profession calls it, the affinity of the hemoglobin molecule with oxygen molecule, and what this affinity, how it is regulated. The affinity means that's the power of attraction between the two molecules, and that's the only one thing that lessens the power of attraction. So the hemoglobin slips the oxygen in order to be leveraged to the cell, and this is carbon dioxide. This is the Christian Bohr's model. It's called Bohr's law. In the Russian side, there was a guy, a scientist called Nikolai Verigo, that in 1895.
Wow, he found this. Okay. Misha, I've got a bit of an emergency here. I've got to make a phone call. Okay. Now, can we take this up? This is really, really, it's fantastic stuff.
I paused the recording.
That's incredible stuff. And I think we'll call this part 1 with introduction. I think we'll do this again because this is just mind-blowing stuff. I mean, this is revolutionary, Misha. And I think, I think we should get it out there and tell people. So we're going to wrap it up right there. Yeah. And we'll get back today, tomorrow, sometime, and we'll do part 2. So thanks very much.
Thank you that was a very interesting talk. Very good questions.
It was. Okay.
See you.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for watching the replay. Thank you.